Hello and welcome. We are going to talk about the official guidelines for ICD-10 PCS. Now, what's really interesting is they are all right here in your coding manual. Easy peasy for you to mark. So when you're taking the national certification exam, of course, you're going to have the book with you. You can look them up, but still, you need to make sure that you are familiar with them and that it's not a big, I don't know the answer to this question. You already know this. You need to be prepared. Okay. So let's take a look. All right. The first set of guidelines in this section are known as the conventions. And these basically are the absolute rules for everything. They're not chapter specific. They are not procedure specific. They are directly issues that affect the whole entire code set. So for example, A1 is reminding you that all ICD-10 PCS codes must have 7 characters. Not 4, not 6, not 10, ever. Always 7. This is a good thing for you to remember because as you are building the code, whether it's for an exam, the national certification, or when you're on the job, I always go back and count. Make sure I didn't miss something. You know, that's the curse of being a human. Okay. All right. So these are important things that you need to review. And I suggest that at some point you just sit down and read through them. And for the most part, you're going to say, okay, I know that. Okay, I know that. Okay, I know that's good. That's good. But you might come across something that, oh, really? Or, oh, I forgot. For example, A2 reminds you that all of the valid characters in any ICD-10 PCS code are going to be constructed of numbers 0 through 9 and all of the letters of the alphabet except the letter I and the letter O. And if you remember, we talked about this because they can be so easily confused with the number 1 and the number 0. So we're always going with numbers and then letters except I and O. Okay. All right. So I want you to make sure that you review these because, as I said, they will give you that sense of foundation, proper foundation for using this code set. And remember, ICD-10 PCS is used only for inpatients in acute care hospitals. Okay? All right. So I'm going to go through this a little quickly because I have a hurricane knocking at my door. Hurricane Ian, I live in Florida, and Hurricane Ian is on his way this afternoon, which is why I'm recording this a little early today. Okay. And as usual, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. Okay. All right. It is important that you remember all 7 characters must be specified as a valid code. This also reminds you that you can take some shortcuts in PCS. Unlike ICD-10-CM, where you must look at the index before you go into, excuse me, the tabular. God, a cough, a sneeze. We don't want to know what else. Okay. You don't have to use the index if you know exactly which table to go to. And this will be very good once you get really used to this, especially when you're on the job, if you're focused on a particular specialty. For example, if you're working for an obstetrician, then you can go right to that chapter, that section, and without having to worry about the index. Okay, remember this is in the front of your ICD-10 PCS book. All right. A9 talks a little bit about the importance of staying on the row. Once you start with your first three characters, 4, 5, 6, 7 are going to be presented in the table, and you're going to have options. But you must stay, once you choose a body part, you must stay on that row. Now note that sometimes one body part may be listed on more than one row with different approaches, devices, or qualifiers. Okay, then you know that you need to move down a row or up a row, whatever is appropriate. A10 just confirms the meaning of the word and. And means and or, just like in ICD-10-CM. So you don't have to feel like you're locked in if it says skin and subcutaneous tissue. It can be skin, it can be subcutaneous tissue, it can be both. Okay, they do this to save room, and you're familiar with that. It's the same as in CM. All right, so again, make sure you pay attention and tab the sections of ICD-10 PCS. And when I say the sections, I not only mean the guidelines and the index, I also mean the appendices. Remember, the appendices have a lot of really good information that can help you clarify what is going on or how to use this code set. Okay, the second part of the guidelines, B, begins with Med-Surg section guidelines. This is going to be very, very helpful because you've already learned CPT. And as you are finding out, the rules are different here. The terms are different here. So these guidelines are going to be a tremendous help to you when you are reporting for any one of these sections. Now we start out at the body section. Now this is the root operation term. It's going to answer those questions. So for example, and this I find to be one of the most heavily used sections of the Med-Surg section guidelines is what happens when there are multiple procedures done in the same session, okay, the same operative episode, which is not unusual. Okay, so the guidelines tell you if this is the case, then do this. And here are some examples. If this is the case, then do that. And here are some examples. Okay, so you want to make sure that you don't have to rely on your memory because your memory is fallible. As I always say, unless you're Sheldon from the Big Bang Theory or you're Spencer Reed from Criminal Minds, it's right there at your fingertips. Don't be foolish. Even if you're sure you know, go double check. What are you going to be, too right? Overly excessively right? Hyper correct? Don't worry about it. But I want you to be accurate. People's lives. This is people's lives, okay? All right. What happens if a procedure is discontinued or is not completed for whatever reason? You have this. You have biopsies, okay? What happened? How do I do a biopsy Which root operation do I use? And what happens if, and we just, I'm sure you learned about this in CPT. I wasn't your instructor, but your CPT instructor talked about what happens if they do the biopsy while the patient is still on the table, and then they say, aha, and they go and do more at the same time. You know how to do this in CPT. Here's the guideline that's going to help you know how to do this in PCS because it is different. Okay, overlapping body layers. This happens. And more bypass. Oh, I'm sorry, before it was biopsy. Bypass, which you know generally is done from the heart, except no, not anymore. They do bypasses from the stomach to the jejunum in surgery for those who are morbidly obese. So therefore, you now have guidance. It's as if I was right there with you all the time to tell you the answer. What's the difference between control and more specific root operations? Okay, that's important. And you have examples. Okay, excision and resection, excision for a graft, which is different, right? Fusion procedures of the spine. Very complicated, but not so complicated. You have the guideline to tell you how to do it. Okay. And here we have 310C combinations of devices and materials used. Okay. This is very, again, and it's going to be something you're going to refer to if you are working for an orthopedist, but it might be something that comes up in an exam. I don't know. But you don't have to worry about it because the guidelines are right here in the front of your book. Inspection procedures. I spy with my little eye a gallbladder that has a stone in it. No, that's not how they do it. Okay. Occlusion, release procedures, and release versus division, which is an important and fine line difference. Okay, reposition for fracture treatment. It's different than when you were coding for CPT. Transplantation versus administration. Uh-huh. Okay, and that comes into play when there are stem cells and things like that. Okay, transfer procedures using multiple tissue layers. And excision resection followed by replacement. All of these things can be challenging to code. And then you have more guidelines based on the body part, based on questions about the approach, based on questions you might have about coding a specific device. Then there, of course, there are guidelines related to the obstetric section, the radiation therapy section, the new technology section. Always a challenge. Remember, that changes every year. And what I mean by that is it's added to every year. And of course, the guidelines for selection of the principal procedure. Now, that is going to be your first listed on the claim form. Very, very important. And especially when you were talking about inpatient services, because remember, Medicare reimburses hospitals for services to their beneficiaries based on the DRG, the diagnosis related group, which, yes, is focused on ICD-10-CM, but also takes in consideration the principal procedure. So you can see how, well, accuracy is the only thing that's important. Okay. All right. Now, you have questions? You're going to email me. Now, because of Hurricane Ian, I have to tell you I may not reply within 24 hours. Ian's supposed to be gone by the weekend, so then we'll be back to normal. I hope I don't lose the power, but you always have Ms. Johnson if you need her in my stead, and it's all gonna be all right. Okay, just remember, tab your PCS book so you can easily access these important sections. All right, everything you need is right there at your fingertips. All right. Have a good day. Be safe. Oh, me too. Be safe.